What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 17 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh,
And I'm Mike.
and today we're coming to you live during we're in the middle of the second quarter right now of the Monday Night Football game between the Chargers and the Cowboys. It's currently tied 7-7 in there, and it has, a little bit of. It's a little early to talk about it, but a little playoff implications in the AFC West. Um, But speaking of Monday Night Football, we'll get to that later. I want to jump right in to some Raiders versus Patriots with Mike. Mike, can you tell us what went on in the game? And first off, who won that game?
The Raiders.
The 3-3 Raiders.
Yeah, the 3-3, 500 Raiders. Yes, they won. Um, I, I mean, it's what we expected. I can't help but think, and even especially after seeing this game, I think the Patriots might secretly be the worst team in football. Like, I know the Panthers are playing pretty bad, but I mean, they got off to a hot start against the Dolphins. They went up 14-0, and they've battled in a couple of games that they've played. Whereas, I mean, the Patriots have won a game. I'm forgetting who they beat, but I don't know. As the season progresses, it just feels like they're the worst team in football. But they do have injuries. But Mac Jones just does not look good. Um, and their offense as a whole, I mean, they can barely run the ball. I mean, there were moments in this game where they were running on the Raiders. Like Ezekiel Elliott had a huge play. I don't think it was a run. I think it was a pass, but it was a long, like 60-yard touchdown. They got brought back because of a holding penalty. Uh, and then they ended up rushing, I want to say, for 2 touchdowns on us. Both Zeke and Ramondre each got a touchdown, I want to say. Uh, but besides that, I mean, there were quite a few 3-and-outs forced on the Patriots offense by the Raiders defense. And the Patriots defense, like, that's what they've been known for. And they got stops on the Raiders, but it was usually when it wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo in the game anymore, which is probably the big thing to talk about. He has a back injury, or at least that's what it was designated as.
Yeah,
It
but
kind
not
of
from carrying the team, right?
no, no, no. I mean, the person that carried the team, at least scoring wise, relative to the title of our stream tonight, A Tale of Two Kickers, would be Daniel Carlson, who ended up scoring 4 field goals, one in each quarter. Um, and then additionally to the score, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a touchdown to Jacoby Myers in the second quarter. And then to end the game, Max Crosby and Adam Butler got a sack in the end zone on Mac Jones to finish it.
A safety, right?
Yeah. So it ended up being 21 to, I want to say 17. Obviously, the Raiders won. A couple stats just to throw out there. Again, I'm not going to take a long time. Just starting with Michael Mayer. Like last week, I came into our pod and I said, man, it finally looks like Michael Mayer is becoming a part of this offense. Like they're starting to progress him into a role. Well, if that was the beginning of it, I think this week was like, this is what it should be every week. 5 catches, 75 yards for Michael Mayer. And then just wait until he gets in the end zone. Like he looks like he's going to be really, really good. And I'm very excited about that. I'm a big fan of the tight end position. I know there are other people that for some reason don't like tight ends. I think the tight end position is kind of at least they can be the jack of all trades. Swiss Army knife sort of player, a la like a you know uh, George Kittle. And then I know Juszczyk is a fullback, but he's kind of in the same vicinity for me. When
When I
they
think of Swiss Army knives, I think of like Kyle Juszczyk, yeah.
yeah
But he's sort of like one of a kind because the NFL doesn't necessarily use fullbacks across the board like they used to.
yeah no, and they definitely don't use him like Juszczyk usually. The last fullback that I can remember playing like in a interesting multi-tool sort of way was Marcel Reese for the Raiders way back when. But yeah, Juszczyk is kind of on a different level. That's the difference between tight ends and fullbacks. Is usually tight ends aren't going to run the ball. But anyways, I think Michael Mayer, coming out of the draft, I felt like he could be somewhere in between. I'm not trying to say oh, he'll be one of the great tight ends of all time, but I could see him being somewhere in between Rob Gronkowski, a guy that I want to say McDaniels helped draft for the Patriots, and this is his offense and everything, and a Zach Miller, who, if you've watched this podcast long enough, is my all-time favorite player, or at least the player that made me a fan of football. So,
I just real quick, I just have to cut you off. It's Michael Mayer has looked great through 2 games, and I think he's gonna really take off and be a great player. But I just find it funny how after two great games, you're immediately like, oh yeah, mentioning him in the same breath as Rob Gronkowski, like one of the greatest tight ends of all time.
Well, that's why I said somewhere in between.
Yeah,
As far as a career scale goes, Zach Miller wasn't an all-timer or nothing. He was good for a couple years. I think he's great, but when you look at the stats and everything, it's like people just go, "Oh, he was okay," but when you actually watched him on the football field, it was like, "No, that's a fucking football player," and somewhere between that statistically and Gronkowski, I'm thinking more like in the middle. So maybe, I'm hoping for a George Kittle, if I'm being honest. I would say that would be in between them, right? Maybe a little bit more towards the Gronkowski side, but I'd say Kittle hasn't been super consistent statistically, But when he gets hot, he's on fire.
Mayer strikes me as like a better blocking Foster Moreau.
Yeah, but the draft capital that they used on him and just the profile that he's built from college, and even apparently he was an absolute menace in high school, tells me this guy should be special.
Yeah, no, but I say it as a compliment.
Yeah,
he's been used like Foster Moreau. Like he hasn't consistently been used so far. But I have to say, these past 2 weeks, Michael Mayer is on the sideline giving his best Mahomes impression. I'm here.
Yeah, I
he's here.
I get the Foster Moreau comparison in the sense that so far in his career, he has been the number 2 tight end. But where my head is going is after this season, when Austin Hooper isn't on this team anymore, at least he probably shouldn't be, he will be the unparalleled. He will be the only tight end receiving catches, at least in a major degree, on this offense. And I just think the way that he's already trending upwards in a matter of now 6 weeks, but especially the past 2 weeks, he's gone from barely getting 1 target in a game to going from 3 targets to 5 targets. It feels like, and my prediction was around mid to late season, he'd become the number 1, the true number 1 tight end, and probably the 3rd target on the offense. It feels like that's coming, And when that does happen, he will already, no offense to Foster Moreau, he will already be above Foster Moreau. As far as the scale.
I don't think it is a tough feat to overcome Foster Moreau's legacy, on the Raiders. I don't think that's a tough hill to climb, and I'm pretty sure Michael Mayer is going to get there with ease. I'm just saying through these first 6 weeks, the usage and everything, like everything considered, reminds me of a better blocking Foster Moreau.
Yeah. No, actually, yeah. I thinking more about it. I agree because I remember his Foster Moreau's rookie year. He looked like a stud when he would get the football in his hand, and then second to last game of the season, or at least in Oakland against the Titans, he tore his ACL his rookie year, and that probably brought him down a little bit for a while. But obviously, he's been through worse, and he's still playing football at a pretty high level. So, um, all that to say, I think Michael Mayer is very much on his way to being, one of
In the
the
Hall of Fame.
guys. No, I'm not going to say that for a long time, but definitely one of the guys on this offense. Another one of those guys would be Josh Jacobs, 25 carries, 77 yards. That's probably the most carries he's gotten this season. And it makes sense because Brian Hoyer was in the game, and I think they had to rely on Jacobs. And it's a little upsetting that he couldn't get to 100 yards on 25 carries, but I like seeing 25 carries for Jacobs, based off of last season. I just need the efficiency to get better. I need the run blocking to get better, and I want to see a 100-yard game rushing from Josh Jacobs this season. It has to happen soon. In fact, next week is a good week for it to happen, but we'll get there. And then Brian Hoyer, he was 6 for 10 for 102 yards, and he had a 94.0 grade, QB grade. This is per ESPN. But the interesting stat from Hoyer, at least to me, is that he completed a 48-yard pass to Trey Tucker. I want to say it was like the third quarter. That is the longest play from scrimmage for this Raiders team this season, 48 yards. And for all I know, the next longest was like 32, like not like 46. Like it might have been a good chunk smaller. And that's been the Jimmy Garoppolo experience for me so far, is not any explosive plays. We had to wait for Brian Hoyer to finally get on the field to get an explosive play. That's kind of ridiculous.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I seem to remember a couple weeks ago when we were arguing which weapons were better for Garoppolo. The Niners weapons that he had, in San Francisco, or the Raiders weapons. And I think you could make the case that the Raiders weapons are better for a quarterback who's going to utilize vertical threats. And for a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, I made the case that, these guys, you can throw them the ball at the line of scrimmage and they're going to break a bunch of tackles.
Yeah, I definitely get it. I just, I think Ayuk, I'm not saying Ayuk is the same as Jacoby Myers, but I think he's in the same, like body type or like wide receiver type mold. Yeah. Like he's not the type of receiver that's going to catch the ball, make one cut, and then run up 30 yards downfield. Occasionally, yes, but Debo's that guy, And then Devontae, he's not that guy, but he's the expert route runner and very good deep, pass catcher. I still think that the thing about the Raiders receivers, and this is Renfrow included, is that they're one of the best route running trios in the league. And I felt that was good for Garoppolo because he's not good at throwing deep. But yes, it does limit Devontae Adams to not having the same explosive plays that he had last season with Derek Carr. And that does suck. But that doesn't mean to me that the Niners receivers are better for Garoppolo. I think what it means to me is perhaps the Niners offense is better for Garoppolo. Because I can't in my right mind say that any group of receivers is better for a quarterback than a group of receivers, including Devontae Adams and honestly Jacoby Myers as the number 2. I think Jacoby Myers is on fucking fire. And he clearly fits this offense beautifully. And I think Devontae Adams, allows him to get open more because all of the eyes are on Devontae. And that was on display this past weekend because Devontae, I think, only had 2 catches, whereas Jacoby Myers had like 5 for 61 yards and a touchdown. So
I'll say this. I will say that the Raiders' weapons are better for more advanced quarterbacks, whereas the 49ers' weapons are definitely more geared towards quarterbacks who need training wheels a little bit, like not subpar, because Purdy's not subpar. Purdy's actually pretty damn good, and that's why that the Niners' offense is scoring 30+ points per game.
That's why they're better with Purdy than Garoppolo.
Yes, but I'm saying like for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, he needs an offense sort of like the Niner offense, like with training wheels. You know what I mean? Whereas I could definitely see you make the case that you wouldn't want anybody besides Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. I'm just saying for the guy that you guys have right now, my guys are better.
Yeah.
For him.
Right.
For his skill set.
Yeah, and for the offense especially, for sure. You bring up a really good point because I was listening to a podcast earlier, and I don't want to name them because they're a fantasy football podcast, and I don't want to give up my sources specifically for you.
Well, guess what? You're about to be 0-6 right now, Mike. So
that's correct.
You could give up your sources. It's not going to matter. I'm my only source.
Honestly, it really doesn't matter because like I'll listen to like 3 or 4 fantasy podcasts throughout my day at work
and formulate your opinions, like just sort of gauging what they say and you think about it.
I'm more interested in like certain stats that they might drop here and there rather than like, oh, you need to pick up this guy. It's like I want to hear you need to pick up this guy because blank, blank, blank. That's what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But
you don't want to hear the oh yeah, it's time to drop all your fab on Amari DeMarcado,
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dude,
James Conner just went down and Amari is ready to take over the backfield.
Well, that was the funny thing about that. I know this is a Cardinals thing, but
yeah,
all the fantasy football experts were saying like number 1 priority is Amari DeMarcado, however you say it. And then literally the next day I saw a tweet, somebody saying, well, first off, Keontae Ingram was out in that previous Cardinals game. And then like a day later, the Cardinals released a depth chart where Keontae Ingram was the starter.
He was the starter.
By that,
and then it
but by that time,
being a third guy.
Yeah, but by that time, people had already picked up DeMarcado for like hella fab or whatever, or their priority, and they got screwed. So I'm like, it's half the time it's a crapshoot. But point being, I'll say it. It's the Ringer Fantasy Football Show on it's a podcast. So I use Apple, and they're like pretty funny. So I just like listening to them. Kind of bullshit half the time. But they brought up this point about quarterbacks. For example, Mac Jones, just a couple guys that they specifically said. Mac Jones, Desmond Ridder, I think they said Tua. And they might have mentioned Purdy as well. Actually, I know we're talking about the Raiders right now, but how exactly was Brock Purdy's interception? Was it like he just threw a bad pass? Maybe it slipped in the wetness of the rain, or was it deflected, or was it like off of receiver's hands?
If I remember correctly, I believe he was targeting Ayuk and threw it behind him, and it got picked. Let me look up the play. I tried to block that game out of my memory, but let me see. Or let me look on Twitter. I have to rewatch that, but all right. Purdy interception. I remember it being a bad throw. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. if you don't mind. Let's see, share screen.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. This is from the NFL. Well, I think I clicked on somebody else's tweet, but the video is from the NFL's Twitter.
Purdy slings it, intercepted.
It's like behind Ayuk.
Yeah, I got dogs barking in the background here.
No, you're good.
But the point being, you have a lot of quarterbacks who are in these offenses that are essentially, the offensive coordinator is essentially telling them, hey, this is your first read, throw it here at this moment. Like, count to 3 and throw the ball, or whatever they tell them, right? Like, you don't even need to read the rest of the field half the time, because the offensive coordinator might be telling them, like, hey, throw it here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed there was an interception by Mac Jones in this Raider game. Oh no, it wasn't an interception, but it was a Mac Jones, steps back, looks to his left and throws the ball. And I think it was Kendrick Bourne, like, ran a really slow route. Like, it was like he was delaying it. So he was supposed to, like, go up to and then, like, cut, go in and then back out. And then he was going to catch the ball. When he cut in, the ball was already thrown to the out, So it was a miscommunication. But when you see the replay, it's like Mac Jones was looking at everything and he still threw it. Like, no questions asked. It's like it was as if it was practiced and timed, and this is when I'm supposed to throw it, and this is where I'm going to throw it. Please be there, And, there's another point made of, like, quarterbacks getting flagged for intentional grounding when they had a miscommunication with the receiver, right? So, like, we used to joke a lot about Derek Carr. He'd throw a pass up and to the right, and then the receiver would be going up and to the left, and then it'd be like on a third down, it's turnover, or they're about to punt, and you see Derek Carr running off the field, and he looks at the receiver, he's like, to the receiver, like, you're supposed to go this way, dude. It's like, on those, I think those are like option routes or whatever, but I guess my point is, at least what it seems like is quarterbacks are being taught, hey, at least if they're not special quarterbacks, at least the way I take it, or this is just the coach, and this is no matter what the offensive coordinator or head coach, this is how they do it. Do not question it. Like, say, a Shanahan, right? And I think Shanahan is the best at this, but basically it seems like these coordinators are telling the quarterbacks, throw the ball here. This is your first read. Just do it at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, when I heard this on the podcast, I literally just thought of that Mac Jones pass, and I was like, that's what it looks like. It's like these quarterbacks are being taught essentially not to think. They're just being taught snap ball, look here, throw ball. And it doesn't matter what he sees, because apparently Desmond Ridder, he threw 3 interceptions, and at least 2 of them were, like, some of the worst interceptions ever seen. Like, just blatant, like, double coverage. Both of the corners or defensive backs were in front of the receiver, but he still threw the ball. Like, what are you doing, right? So it's interesting to me. Like, why would a quarterback do that other than freaking out because he's getting pressure, which I don't think Mac Jones was on that play, or because they're being taught, I don't care, you throw it here. Like you and I talked about on the podcast, I want to say, there was a play, maybe it was Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't remember, where Shanahan got pissed off because the quarterback didn't go to the first read.
It was Nick Mullins.
Okay. Didn't go to the first read, threw it somewhere else, and was it completed?
It was completed, I believe. It was like I want to say it was a wheel route, or he was supposed to throw the wheel route, and Kyle Shanahan chewed him out on the headset. And then Mike McDaniel, after like there was some silence, chimed in like, hey, but isn't it good that he didn't throw it there because
he was covered up or something.
Yeah, the ball would have been picked, or like something along those lines.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, isn't that weird that coaches are like that. That coaches are like, I don't care how bad it makes you look. I want you to throw it here. Because like a guy like Desmond Ritter, or let's say this is happening to Mac Jones right now, where like they're actually better quarterbacks, but they have to do what their coordinator says or they will get benched. But if they do what their coordinator says and they go out there and throw 2 picks, or like Desmond Ritter, 3 picks, and then by the end of the season they're getting benched anyways, it's like there's no winning, if that's the case. Now in Brock Purdy's case, for one thing, I don't think Brock Purdy is always doing only the first read by Shanahan type of thing, but I think Shanahan does this quite a bit, and like I said, I think he's the best at this because his offense is so proficient, but it's just odd. And I guess the other thing that I'm getting at is the quarterback that I want. I don't want a quarterback and coach tandem that is coach telling quarterback what to do. I want the Patrick Mahomes, the Justin Herbert, the special quarterback
that's going to go out there that's going to read the defense, is going to know where to go with the ball, is going to know, all right, I see the defender right there. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to go there. I'm going to be able to have freedom to switch the play. Yeah, I want to see that shit. Like,
yeah, that's what I want.
I didn't have the pleasure of being born in time to witness Bill Walsh, but everything I hear is like that Bill Walsh would have have his quarterbacks and the whole offense. They would practice the same play, but practice different scenarios. Like, all right, this is what happens when they're in this coverage. This is what happens when Dwight Clark is covered. This is what happens when Dwight Clark slips. This is what happens when the fullbacks, like they would. I mean, back then they were able to practice much more. But yeah. I feel like nowadays, you mentioned that a lot of coaches are like that. I feel like it's an ego thing where instead of having the quarterback prepared to see everything and having the quarterback learn, and be and play the position on the field, it's more like they want to play Madden, and it's like,
yeah, all
right, I'm a genius and I know this is going to happen, and if you don't trust me, I'm going to put you on the bench. Like, that shit to me, it's kind of whack. I don't like
it's
that
weak.
Shit.
It's trash, dude. Like,
yeah.
You're I understand. I kind of get it for Shanahan because, at least from what it seems like, he's proven that it works. But also, like, you're not on the field doing it, so come on.
Has he
doesn't have a
that
ring?
It works? Yeah.
No, he doesn't. Has he? But I mean, the teams that, or at least the offenses that he's put together, like, he put together an MVP season for Matt Ryan. And I think Matt Ryan at the time was a guy that was making his own decisions, but I'm sure there were a lot of plays where it was go to the first read, And granted, in that offense at the time, I want to say it would be pretty easy because the first read would either be Julio Jones, I want to say Roddy White, or fucking Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. So it's not too bad, And then the same for this offense with the Niners. Now it's Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, or McCaffrey. So I just, obviously it's going to be successful, maybe not with a ring, but it is successful for him. But yeah, I guess my whole point there is just, I want the Raiders to get a quarterback that doesn't have to, be told what to do.
Doesn't have to have the offense catered to him. You want a quarterback that's going to be able to carry the offense.
Yeah, I want a difference maker. That's what I've been wanting, and that's why I don't mind losing, because I want them to lose enough to get that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that to some people that might be like, "Oh, that's loser mentality," but it's like, well, as long as we have dipshit quarterbacks, we're going to be losing, or we're not going to be winning enough games to win the games that you want to win, which are playoff games.
Or as long as you don't have a serious quarterback, you're not going to be a serious contender. Yeah. And that's really what it's all about. But let's get back to recapping the Raiders versus Patriots, because we went on our little tangent, as we always do. We both predicted that the Raiders were going to win. So we both get green there. And I'm going to go ahead and update this. So case 6. Okay. So now I can add K8. Okay. Yep. And then I can add L8. So Mike, you are currently 3 out of 6 on your predictions with the Raiders. I'm currently 4 out of 6. Or 4 of 6, however you want to word it. Do you have any last thoughts about the Raiders versus Patriots before we move on to the Bears game?
My last thought is, once again, the defense did what it needed to do, and then some, at least this one time against the Patriots, which, again, I think that's because of how bad the Patriots are. But granted, I mean, I started the Raiders defense in 2 fantasy leagues, and I felt good about it, especially afterwards. So that's nice. And then really my last thought is, I need to see a lot more from this offense. And Michael Mayer is like a glimmer of hope, but I need to see Josh Jacobs rushing for 100 yards. I need to see at least one of the top 2 receivers getting 100 yards and a touchdown, you know. I want to see like at least 250 passing yards plus a 100-yard rusher, you know. I want to see a game where we don't give up sacks. I want to, you know, they might not have given up a sack in this past game, but, you know, against a competitive team, right? But my last thought is just, I want to see more from the offense. And I know this is kind of getting into next week, but there are questions about who's going to be at quarterback. So.
All right. I think we're ready to move on. But first, Anthony, thank you for tuning in to the stream. We recognize you from before, and we see you repping your Raider flags. All right.
Welcome back.
So we've got the Raiders playing the Bears on a Sunday morning game. Mike, what can we expect out of this matchup?
The Raiders will be in Chicago. At least I'm fairly positive. I'm expecting 2 teams to trot out backup quarterbacks. I don't think Justin Fields is going to play because he has a dislocated throwing thumb. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I do not expect to play because of whatever is going on with his back injury. And honestly, I'm honestly mixed on who should start at quarterback for the Raiders because, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago against the Chargers, I was really pulling for Aiden O'Connell to play, and he did. And they kind of made it seem like, oh, it was secretly going to happen all along. Like, as the week went on, he got more and more practice snaps. But I don't know. Like, the rumor going in to that game was, oh, Brian Hoyer's going to start. And all season, Brian Hoyer has been the number 2 quarterback on the active roster. And then Aiden O'Connell has been inactive, acting as the emergency quarterback. He's dressed and ready to go, but only if Jimmy and Hoyer both go down.
Yeah.
And now looking at it, that's been pretty wise because I thought Hoyer was okay. Like I said in the previous topic, he threw a 48-yard pass to Trey Tucker, which is our longest play from scrimmage this season.
It resulted in points, right?
I'm sure it resulted in a field goal. My only issue with Hoyer is that he didn't score a touchdown when he was the quarterback for the Raiders against the Patriots. He was able to get them down the field and score maybe twice, both field goals. But, yeah, he didn't lead a touchdown drive against a pretty shitty defense on the Patriots. I think the Bears are a team that you can score on. But, man, that's going to be embarrassing if they don't, you know. I think what's obvious is Hoyer – well, one of the 2 will be the starter. I really don't know who. It's entirely possible that they decide to go with O'Connell again, just to get him more reps. But I think what makes more sense to me is to have Hoyer be the starter because he at least looked okay. And he was throwing the ball, in my opinion, like a backup would, whereas O'Connell was playing against the Chargers like a rookie would,
Mm.
And I think this is a stretch of games where, especially after losing that Charger game, we need to win. So I think they likely go with Hoyer, and then O'Connell will be active and ready to go in case of emergency, behind Hoyer. Other than that, I mean, like I've been saying, I need to see Jacobs get it going. They gave him 25 carries against the Patriots. I give him 30 against the Bears, honestly. Just develop the run, man. And again, this is a game where you can do it. So do it. And get Devontae going too, because there were issues between Hoyer and Devontae, not like actually, jawing at each other or anything, but just they couldn't connect quite well. And I think that'll probably be an emphasis this week. And again, I want to see Michael Mayer, continuing his uptick in production. And it feels like Mayer is he's been oh gosh, what's the word? He's been almost the centerpiece on the opening game script for the offense. And then he kind of goes away for a while and then maybe gets like one catch later in the game. I like to see him consistently get targets throughout the game. That's what I like to see. And then on defense, I mean, like I said, it should be a backup quarterback on a team that's already super hurt at running back. They have DJ Moore at wide receiver, but really everybody else is kind of on and off between I'm forgetting the other guy's name, but they also have the tight end Cole Kmet. I'm sure their offensive line isn't that good for the Bears, so I'd like to see another really good game from the defense for the Raiders. And I hope, because the season is not going to be this easy, for the Raiders. It's going to start getting really hard, especially week 8, the following week against the Lions. But I'd like to think that maybe this Packers, Patriots, Bears run can get the defense in a nice streak, of playing really good, hopefully consistent defense, to where maybe when they face the Lions or the Vikings or whoever they face upcoming, they can play really, really well and actually truly win the game for the Raiders, because that's kind of been their MO the past couple weeks, is like, oh, the defense is winning the game for the Raiders and the offense is kind of not. But when you face a really good team, that's when we'll actually know if they can or not. Because I feel like the Buccaneers, I just read a tweet. The Patriots and the Packers, the way that those games played out, it's like I can't really gauge how good the defense is against those offenses. So, other than that, I'm looking for a win. I expect a win against this Bears team. So,
So you predict the Raiders will win?
Yeah.
See, I'm going to shock you right now.
Do it.
With all the problems with the Bears, their lack of quarterback, their lack of running back, and their defense that just allows a lot of points, I'm going to go ahead and take the Raiders. I know, shocking, right? I don't see a scenario where even though the Raiders are also going to play their backup quarterback or third string quarterback, I don't see a scenario where the Bears walk away with a win in this game, unless like DJ Moore just completely like carries the team on their back and like Hoyer is absolutely like shitting the bed.
Yeah.
I would I would be more willing to bet that the Raiders are going to perform a little like I feel like the drop off from Justin Fields to their backup quarterback is a much bigger drop off from, compared to like Jimmy Garoppolo to Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell. So I think no matter who starts for the Raiders, they're just going to outscore the Bears, I think.
Yeah, and actually you saying all that really makes me hope that Aiden O'Connell is a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd like to see him get really good game reps where, I mean, this is borderline a preseason game. It really, that's what it kind of feels like. In a similar way to the Charger game, except the Chargers had Khalil Mack, breathing down his fucking neck all game. I don't know if the Bears have a guy like that. I know they have Tremaine Edmonds at a linebacker, but I feel like he hasn't had that good of a season. So I feel like this is another game where you could just trot O'Connell out there and tell him, hey, you got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, now Michael Mayer's playing good. Go get it done,
Yeah. I would also start O'Connell. I understand having Brian Hoyer be the backup to come in for Garoppolo, during a game where Jimmy's playing, because I feel like Hoyer and Garoppolo are a little bit more similar to one another than O'Connell and Garoppolo. O'Connell, I feel like, has potential to be better than Jimmy, but he just has to get there. And I think this is a good opportunity to get him game reps. And I mean, here's the good thing. If O'Connell starts and if he sucks, you guys are closer to getting a guy like Caleb Williams. If O'Connell starts and he's good, then you guys win the game and have a winning record. So, and then there's the third scenario, which is the most likely Raiders scenario, where you do neither. You start Hoyer and, either this
we barely squeak out a win.
Yeah, you barely squeak out a win or you lose in the most embarrassing fashion. So, yeah, I want O'Connell. I'm picking the Raiders. Mike, Raiders?
Yeah, I'm picking the Raiders. You do bring up a good point, too, because I think Hoyer is probably when the game script is Jimmy G, Hoyer is the best suited to come in case Jimmy G gets hurt and try to replicate that. Whereas O'Connell likely needs a full week of practice to set up for the game that he's going to play in, So, yeah, I really like the idea of O'Connell starting and then Hoyer being the backup. And then, when Jimmy G's playing, Hoyer being the number 2, it makes more sense.
I was trying to quickly look for that one meme where it's like, oh man, look at that throw. And man, we should have had a quarterback like this. You know which meme I'm talking about?
No.
Where it's like when the backup quarterback comes in and starts playing hella well. They always do this whenever for example, when Trey Lance got traded to the Cowboys, and then it's like, oh, all the Cowboys receivers, man, look at the way he throws the ball. We should have had a quarterback like this. And Prescott's just kind of looking like what?
Yeah.
Reacting to the receivers' comments.
It's funny actually. This will be my last thing on the Raiders, and it's really not about the Raiders. This past Saturday, I want to say it was Saturday, USC played Notre Dame, I think. And apparently, Caleb Williams had a horrible game. 3 interceptions. I don't know what the score was, but that's all I kind of heard. And I know it's one game, but I kind of sat there man, what if he's actually not that good? And maybe the best quarterback out of this draft will be Drake May. And Caleb Williams will get drafted by a shitty franchise, say the Bears are going to have the first overall pick most likely because they have the Panthers pick and their own.
And then they ruin them.
Yeah, and then they ruin them. And Caleb Williams seems like one of those guys that does think for himself when he plays, and usually it is beautiful. But what if he gets to the NFL, and who's to say it's not like this past weekend where it's 3 interceptions, maybe one touchdown and just a lot of struggles, especially obviously early on in his career. But what if? Whereas like a Drake May might be the more, I don't know if I'd say that he's the more priority quarterback, because honestly I don't know, but it's interesting to think.
I just have to say, like, I hope it doesn't seem crazy that I think this, and I could absolutely be wrong, but I'll word it like this. I'm not confident, or I don't know that Caleb Williams' play will translate to the NFL, because all the highlights that they show him just, the pocket is wide open. He's running, outrunning linemen and escaping wherever he wants to go and then find somebody. It's very impressive. The throws that he makes on the run, it's incredible. But
Yeah.
the whole game where like he just gets to stand that comfortably in the pocket, that shit doesn't work in the NFL.
Yeah, honestly, like the way I've kind of looked at him, yeah, like what I've heard is like, oh, he has the best chance out of any quarterback to be like not the next Mahomes, but something similar to Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way I've always looked at him is like, oh, he's kind of like Kyler Murray coming out. And I mean, Kyler Murray, when he got to the NFL, like he was good. And he's still very well should be good when he comes back. It's just a matter of him being healthy. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder if is Caleb Williams, I guess hopefully, like a rich man's Bryce Young, where Bryce Young was doing the same thing where he was making these ridiculous plays, but I mean, look at him on the Panthers. Like they're the one team that doesn't have a win this season, I want to say. And I mean, he's a rookie. It's kind of expected, and the Panthers are not a very good team on paper, but still, it's like, yeah, it's very likely that it will take time for those sorts of quarterbacks. But it also, it's going to take time for any quarterback that gets drafted to a team that's like bottom of the barrel, which is kind of why, like, I feel like the Raiders roster isn't bottom of the barrel. If you put a special quarterback on this roster, they could be a playoff team, So, like, part of me feels like they could trade up, get a top quarterback, and then in a year, like, be a contender, especially if they fix the defense in that time as well. But it's all theoretical, and who the hell knows?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have the Raiders against the Bears. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think we're ready to move on. But you got the Raiders. I got the Raiders. We ready to move on?
Yes, I was going on tangents, but we are ready.
We are finally ready for the 49ers versus Browns recap. And I have to say, the Niners played against the Browns, but really they played like they were the Browns on the field. You know what I mean? Like when you got the runs. No. The Niners played terribly. Not as bad as that joke that I just made, but it was a pretty awful game all around. I don't think the coaching was necessarily that great. Brock Purdy played awfully. He did lead a potentially game-winning drive at the end, which is like when it matters. And He definitely answered the question on whether he would be able to do that. Because I would say in like a normal set of circumstances or conditions, the Niners probably pull out that victory. And I would even say, like, if it's not raining too, the game probably isn't as close as it was. And it wasn't like an absolute downpour. But one thing I've noticed is like Shanahan teams do not prepare well for rainy games. They just like, I think back to the Niners week 1 versus Chicago. I think back to primetime versus the Colts in 2021. It might have been 22. But
I know what game you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I think I also think back to like the Ravens game in 2019. They, I don't know if they just don't prepare properly, but we knew it was going to be a dogfight sort of going in against that defense. And I thought the Niners, I mean, I learned something this week. Hey, maybe they won't put up 30 every game. 30 for Purdy isn't like a done deal. I would say in most games, probably. But Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey went down and were not able to finish the game. Deebo went out pretty early with a shoulder injury, and McCaffrey is dealing with an oblique injury. And the offense just couldn't really get anything going. And I'm going to pull up a couple stats, and I'm just going to talk about a couple things that I feel like need to be brought up. That aren't necessarily like super important or anything, but Purdy's numbers against Cleveland: 12 of 27 for 125 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Took 3 sacks for 18 yards, and it was in the rain. It was like a light rain, and I'm pretty sure it was windy because that stadium is notorious for having winds like that affect passing, they affect kicking, and so the offense really couldn't get going against a great defense in Cleveland. One of the reasons why I show these stats is because we have such a high opinion of Purdy, and this was like a real measuring stick game for Purdy. I think it shows that he's not perfect. He's a vulnerable guy. Great quarterbacks even have bad games. But I'm also going to share another screen where a lot of people use this game to make a judgment about this quarterback. And I'm not saying it really doesn't matter. I've moved on, and I know that we're not getting this player back, and I don't necessarily want this player back. But this was the game week 1 against Chicago in the monsoon, like an actual raining game. So if you want to compare these stats with Purdy's, so Lance was 13 of 28 for 164 yards and an interception, no touchdown. So Purdy, they at least got a touchdown, but the defense put them in prime position to get points, right? In the game on Sunday. And then obviously Trey in that game had the rushing upside. But my point is that the stats are very, very similar. Trey's are actually a little bit better than Brock's were yesterday. But my point is that you can't necessarily judge a quarterback based on one game. And I was really annoyed with, many 49er fans for a long time that people would make this assumption about a guy like Lance who only got to play 4 games, based off of a monsoon game, right? And really, I'm gonna stop talking about Lance because I know mostly nobody wants to hear it, but I want to say that there is always gray area and what do you say? Like there are circumstances that lead to, not everything's just black and white, right? And so
that's a huge thing that I feel in life. Like,
yeah,
so many people, whether it's like just a random example, like politics, it's like, dude, anything in life, you get anything that you think is black and white, I promise you it's not. Continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just want to say we ran one quarterback out of town, for a similar game. And now Brock Purdy, he's shown that he can run the offense. And Brock Purdy, I mean, he's better than Trey Lance right now. Like I'm not arguing, the other side. But, I think that we have to be patient in evaluating these guys instead of propping up Purdy to be the next Joe Montana, because then we get games like this where we have a reality check. So let's try not to be so quick to jump to conclusions and put all this pressure on a guy like Brock Purdy to live up to, all week the media was talking about whether or not he is elite, right? And I think Brock Purdy has elite qualities. He has money in the short to intermediate passing game, but I don't necessarily think he is like on the same scale as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert yet. And Purdy made some nice passes that were also dropped. Like I'm not putting this game all on Purdy. I'm not putting this game all on one person, right? The whole team, I feel like across the board, the defense for the most part, held together. They had a little bit of trouble stopping the run. And, with everything that I said about Purdy, he wasn't even the worst quarterback on the field. I feel like PJ Walker was worse. He was much worse. And, it's a shame that this was such a winnable game, and people are going to talk about how the refs were awful. I think they were awful both ways. The Niners had so many opportunities to win this game, and they didn't. And it all came down to a game-winning field goal at the end where they put their rookie kicker in a position to win the game. I would have liked to see the Niners try and not only score a touchdown. You don't have to score a touchdown in that situation, but at least try to get the ball a little bit closer than a 41-yard field goal. Everybody's shitting on Jake Moody right now, but he's been pretty money all season. He was like shaky in the preseason, and then was like money, and then the Browns Stadium, what is it, Progressive Field? I think it's Progressive Field. But the Browns Stadium is like I said, it's known for being very difficult to kick in. The Browns kicker, who kicks there every single game, even missed a field goal or a PAT. And that dude kicks there I don't know how many days a year, but he should be used to it by now. I don't think it was a sure thing field goal. And I was very upset that Niners had 40 seconds left and a timeout. They could have ran several more plays. It was still second down. It wasn't like a fourth down situation and it was like a make or break. They chose to wind down the clock and kick the field goal with 9 seconds left. And I didn't even understand that too. If you're going to wind down the clock, wind it down to 3 seconds, right? All right, let's just say you make that field goal. You're giving the Browns an opportunity to, have a Miami Miracle kind of thing, on the kickoff where they can just keep lateraling it. And then, next thing you know, you lose the game off of something stupid as well. I think Mike, I think that you said in the group chat, you're I think you mentioned the Niners probably didn't want to risk turning the ball over. And I absolutely responded with something, really snarky. I was like, true. I'm really glad that they didn't. That would have been huge. Because at the end of the day, whether they would have turned the ball over or missed the field goal, they didn't win the game. And I wasn't happy with the officiating. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the officiating was definitely a thing in this game for sure. I think that the issue with trying to push it more downfield, I totally agree with trying to run the ball until it goes down to 5 to 3 seconds or fourth down, and you call that final timeout. I completely agree. I would try to get a 30-yard field goal, not a 40-yarder, because like you said, they had some time on the clock when I remember the announcer saying okay, it looks like Shanahan's going to just wisely, clock it here and then kick the field goal attempt. And he left extra time on, which maybe he did that because, theoretically, if the holder, misplaces the snap and the kick, Moody can't kick it off, he can lay on it, then it becomes like a 49-yard field goal attempt or something like that. But you still have time to call another timeout if they had another one, I don't know, and then kick the next, kick another attempt. Maybe that's his thinking. But yes, I agree I would just keep running until you get it closer and fucking kick a 30-yarder, not a 41-yarder, in a weather game where, did Moody, was that his only missed attempt or did he miss another one earlier? Or?
No, he missed a field goal earlier. So it's like not only are you entrusting a rookie kicker, it's kind of not fair to Moody. He didn't choose to be drafted in the third round by a win now team who has super high expectations. It's really less about him. And it's if he would have just made the field goal, we wouldn't be talking about it, right? If he would have just made it, but it wasn't an easy one, and I feel like we've been spoiled with Robbie Gould the past several years, and the Niners can very well call up Robbie Gould and sign him, because they freed up cap space and are, he would probably make an impact on this team, but
they could. But the issue is you already spent the draft capital on Moody. There's absolutely no reason to trade him, and definitely not to cut him because, again, the draft capital, and two, Robbie Gould would be a 1-season rental, and then he'd probably retire. He's probably just waiting for a team in the East Coast to sign him because I think that was his whole thing, was he wanted to go back home towards the Chicago area. So I just giving up on Moody this early makes no sense, especially because in the regular season he's actually been really good. In the preseason, he struggled like crazy, but regular season, he's been good. And this was a weather game again. So I don't fault him. And then also just one point about the game that I didn't really remember to say. You said that you would have rather seen them try to get maybe not a touchdown, but, closer up to
get
the field.
Closer.
Yeah. My only issue is, like I said in the group chat, you don't want to turn the ball over in that scenario, because if you do, that's your fault. That's either the player's fault that gets the interception or fumbles, or most likely it's Shanahan's fault and he probably doesn't want to hear that. If we're being honest, we talked about egos earlier for coaches. He doesn't want to hear that's Shanahan's fault.
Well, he's hearing it now because I was literally on my couch, or not on my couch. I was on Pia's couch, Pia's dad. And literally when they ran their play and then it was second down and then they were letting the time wind down, we were both like, no, what are you doing? This isn't a gimme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then going back to the whole Robbie Gould thing, I know I've been all over the place during this entire segment. I'm trying to piece things together. But I don't even think if you did re-sign Robbie Gould, I feel like he should retire, because there were even points last season where I remember it's why wouldn't you just kick a 50-yarder here? And it's maybe Robbie Gould was money inside the 50 and kind of spotty outside the 50. And I think Jake Moody gives you that long range upside.
Yeah.
And he was money up until yesterday. And good news, he's not going to kick in Cleveland every week.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know what sucks is we have a fan base that's absolutely getting their torches and pitchforks, even though we're still the first seed in the NFC. They're getting they're trying to run him out of town already. And it's I feel really bad for him.
See, that's,
he seems to feel very upset that he missed the kick. I think it means a lot to him.
Yeah, And, last week on our podcast, I said something along the lines of, here are my issues with the Niners fan base. And in our group chat, because I didn't quite perfect my execution of what I said last week on the podcast, I ended up saying something with Lorenzo in the group chat at some point, basically saying Niner fans are just really reactive. Like they're so reactive and tend to overreact. Okay.
Well,
For
you
example,
said that they care about what other people think too much,
that
and I
too,
agree.
but I also think they're just, and yes, but they're reactive. Like, and it's really annoying from my perspective because I'm a fan of a struggling franchise, and you guys are watching a team who's going out there consistently being like a top 3 seed, going to the NFC Championship like how many years out of the past 6? I don't know, but it's a lot compared to my team, right? So I'm over here like, fuck you, stop complaining, enjoy what you're seeing because it's greatness. I don't care if you don't get a ring, it's greatness. I'm sorry.
I
Right?
care if I don't get a ring. That's the only thing I care about. And
Yeah. And if my team becomes that good, I'm going to beg for a ring as well. But until that point, I'm just begging to see my team play like you guys, if I'm being honest. So when I see the fans, like after 1 week, questioning Brock Purdy, complaining way too much about Moody, and also, complaining about Shanahan's decision making, it's like you guys were a missed field goal away and probably a couple of bad penalty calls away from being the lone undefeated team in football, and there would be no questions asked right now. Like Moody can miss that kick earlier in the game, and if it didn't come down to this final field goal, and instead you guys forced a turnover on the Cleveland final drive that got them a field goal to get the lead, there's no complaints. There's no talking about, wow, Brock Purdy had a really like his worst game of his career. Instead, it would just be, hey man, the Niners get it done no matter what, right? It's like that one little shade of negativity, that one loss in the loss column, and all of a sudden everybody's kind of like, oh God, are we actually like not that good? It's like, no, you are. You are. Settle down, guys. I'm not talking to you. It's more the other Niner fans. You guys are fine.
I want to add on to this. If you don't think this represents you, we're not talking about you. So if you're a Niner fan at home and you think like, man, I don't act like that, or nobody that I know acts like that, we're not talking about you. We know that there's a portion of the fan base that's like,
realistic.
It's more realistic and like not too like
pitchfork ready.
Yeah, pitchfork ready. But I guess that's just the whole thing about like social media. Everybody's just like pitchfork ready, like at all times, every hour of the day. And that's why like it's good to go outside and touch some grass sometimes.
Yeah, and to be as oh God, what's the word? Like, I guess just honest as I can be here, because I don't want to seem like I'm just shitting on Niner fans. Like, there are Raider fans too, who are just so reactive. There's this one Twitter account that I follow that for some reason I still have their notifications on, and it's honestly annoying every time I see their tweets, because all it is just Josh McDaniels slander, like nonstop. And I'm like, I get it, but shut the fuck up. Shut up. It's so annoying. Like, just like, hey, I get it, because like we've won the past 2 weeks and I sat here like I'm not even enjoying this because we're not going anywhere, Like, I can't enjoy it until I know that we're going somewhere, or I feel that we are, like say 2021, 2016, right? We're, playoff seasons. Like, I could enjoy those wins, but this year it's like I don't see it. So I'm not going to enjoy it. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and be like, we need to fire Josh McDaniels like nonstop. Like, yes, there are games where I'll react and I'm like, this is not working. It needs to get, like, we need to rebuild, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to sit here and just keep saying it and keep tweeting it and keep this and keep that. It's like, okay, like you keep saying, it's one game at a time. But it's just, there's no need to like overreact and overreact and overreact. So,
yeah. So here's what I'll say about like Jake Moody. Is it time to panic on him? No, I don't think it's time to panic. Is it time to be concerned about it? Like, if it happens again and we lose another game off of a missed field goal, then yeah, I think it's time to panic. But like, this is just one game where like literally the entire team played like crap. Like, Purdy played like crap. Ayuk played like crap. McCaffrey got hurt. Debo got hurt. Kittle had one catch. It's just across the board. Like, the offensive line got worked. Nick Bosa's only sack was like when he was untouched. And that's another thing too.
Yeah.
Dude, that's another thing too is Bosa was getting locked up by DeJuan Jones, the right tackle.
Second year, right?
No, he was a rookie.
Is he a rookie? He's a rookie?
He was drafted. He was drafted 6 picks after Jake Moody.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, all right, why don't the Niners have that guy? They didn't draft a single lineman this year. And then here I am complaining and bitching, and you're like, shut up, Josh. But
no. Actually, I agree on this one because I remember hearing DeJuan Jones' name quite a bit and about like, oh, he's such a good like power blocker or whatever, and like blah 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 blah. And he fell to like the 4th round, and I was just sitting there like, why is this dude still here? And then he gets picked, and it's like, oh, of course the fucking Browns got him.
Dude,
one of those teams that just knows how to run block.
Yeah. And then he was like Bosa wasn't getting anything on him. Did you see Brian Baldinger's breakdown?
Was it of Bosa or?
It was of DeJuan Jones
locking
down Bosa.
Yeah, that's crazy. I
feel like pulling it up. Should I pull it up?
Yeah, you might as well. I actually I knew I had some stats somewhere that I wanted to talk about. While you pull it up, I'll bring these stats up. This is a tweet. The top 20 pass rushers by pressure rate.
Pressure weight.
This is pressure weight. Yeah. This is from Benjamin Solak on Twitter. So I'm just going to read the names off. Bryce Huff from the New York Jets. Rashawn Gary, Packers. Micah Parsons, Cowboys. Myles Garrett, Cleveland. Jaquan Jones, Buffalo. Josh Uche from the Patriots. Victor, Dimu Kije. I'm sorry, that's probably way wrong. Linebacker from Arizona. Dorrance Armstrong, Dallas. Kyle Van Noy, linebacker, Baltimore. DeMarcus Lawrence, Dallas. Max Crosby at 11, Vegas. There's an interesting stat here for Crosby. Tano Compassignon, Saints. Devontae Wyatt, Packers. Chase Young, Washington. John Franklin Myers, Jets. Lots of Jets. Actually, sorry, that's the second Jet. I was thinking Packers. Jalen Carter, fuck me. Jalen Carter is a beast. The Raiders absolutely should have drafted him. Defensive lineman from Philly. Matt Judon, New England. Jadeveon Clowney, Baltimore. Trey Hendrickson, Cincinnati. And then AJ Epineza, Buffalo. Nowhere to be seen is Nick Bosa, which shocked me when I saw this. And then the interesting stat for Crosby, the number 2 stat on this list is defensive snaps, like total snaps. The average for these players is like probably around 200 to 250 snaps. Crosby's sitting at 357. And then additional snap, I know we're talking Niners here, and it sucks I didn't bring this up in the Raiders one. Josh Dubois tweeted, the Raiders' Max Crosby played every defensive snap yesterday for the 3rd straight week and ended the game with a safety. No other defensive lineman in the NFL this season has played 100% of defensive snaps in a single game. And Crosby's done that 3 straight weeks. It's insane. And again, he has the most snaps played, and he's the number 1 on pressure rate. Number 11 on pressure rate in the NFL. That's insane. That's insane. So
let me show you
we're talking about Bosa.
The Baldinger breakdown of DeJuan Jones. And they call him Thanos, by the way, which I think is awesome because just think about my profile picture on fantasy.
Hey, did you hear about the party in Cleveland? A couple of Buckeyes were going to get together. DeJuan Jones and the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. What?
Real quick, this is Brian Baldinger at Baldy NFL on Twitter. So, he's always doing film breakdowns.
Big Thanos. No help. Like, he's just pushing Bosa. Like, he had a good day. You want to watch Nick Bosa disappear? Watch what the big Thanos does. This is what a Pacific Manta can do to a guy named Bosa. Like, just throw him to the other side. Just eliminate him. Look at PJ over here. Like, he's out there in the park just making throws like this. Like, this was impressive. No training wheels. They were off by the second half. And Bosa's coming. Like, he's in front of them, dancing with them. One good set after another. That's what you're looking for, consistency. See the stab? Bam! To the throat. He likes to go to the throat a lot. All right? It's a good It's hard to breathe if you got big paws on the throat. Now, the only sack Bosa got was a miscommunication here. See, Dewan thinks the center's sliding with him right here because here comes the pressure on the outside. But the center's being covered up by Fred Warner, and so Bosa comes free. That was his sack, miscommunication. Stuff happens. Happens every Sunday to different teams. And then Bosa decides, you know what? Let's take Big Thanos to the Sadie Hawkins dance. Let's grab him by his paws. Let's dance with him. But the big man can dance. Oh, yeah. Like he's fine. Nice throw. And then time to get into field goal range.
Look at how big
Final
he
2
is,
minutes
man.
of the
79.
game.
Yeah.
He's got to get Fred Warner on a Passover block here. Watch the feet. Bam. Now, just get a paw. Just get a paw on the 49ers middle linebacker, and they're going to throw.
I didn't think that was too impressive of a block, but still.
Home for it. 22 yards. I like the way Thanos just walks around the field like that, like he owns it, like he's in charge. Large and in charge. Hey, everybody else is running, moving, dancing. Not Thanos. Thanos is in charge.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah. I love that I'm pretty sure Baldy was the one that came up with the Condor nickname for Max Crosby because of his long arms. So.
Yeah, so I mean, really, going back to the Niners-Browns, I'm going to pull up our spreadsheet because we were both incorrect in our predictions, and then I'll share final thoughts. So we can finally add, red to this column. I think that's the right shade. No, it's darker. Yeah, we were both wrong. And now we're each 5 of 6. So
it's feeling like Christmas.
Yeah, it is feeling like Christmas. It's the nightmare before Christmas. That's what the Niners were on Sunday. The nightmare before Christmas.
And you know what? Actually, you were talking about a lot of players that were like letting the Niners down on Sunday. I don't really fault Purdy all that much because I think this is similar to, like you mentioned, the Trey Lance game. In the monsoon where it's rainy, he's throwing a lot of inaccurate passes. His stat sheet literally looked like that of a Mr. Irrelevant for once. He's been so consistent and so efficient in his career so far, Purdy. For one thing, this doesn't worry me at all. Like anybody that's worried about Purdy suddenly becoming like the guy that he was drafted to be, which is like a third string quarterback, like I don't see that happening. I'd have to see a lot more bad games to start getting worried. Like one game like this is not going to worry me. Also bear in mind, Cleveland's defense is on a fucking historic trajectory right now. Through 6 games, they've given up it might be 1,200 yards because of the Niners game, but I want to say it's like, let's just say through 5 weeks, they'd only given up 1,007 yards, which was the least amount since 1971.
Mm-hmm.
And of all time, it's top 5 statistically. So they're on a pretty crazy trajectory, but it'll probably even out as the season goes on. But still, that's a good defense you guys played. And again, you lost 2 of your biggest weapons, and
Debo,
your running back, which in a rainy game, you need your running back, you need your running game, and then also ideally you'd be throwing a lot of short passes to Debo where he makes the one cut and goes, and he was out early on in the game. So your offense was hindered pretty early in this one, but the group that really struggled that I would have imagined would have won the game for you guys is your defense against a backup quarterback, a guy who was in the USFL or whatever 2 years ago. That's what shocked me. I think it was the XFL. I think so. Either way,
he was an MVP of the XFL. I remember, talking to you about PJ Walker when he played for, I think, Houston.
Yeah, and I really liked him. I liked him. Yeah, it was Houston. Yeah, whatever the team name was called. Yeah, he was good, dude. He was good. And when he first went to the Panthers, I was like, good for him. He looks like an NFL quarterback, and his stats were shit in this game. But that's kind of what you'd expect against the Niners defense, and from a backup quarterback. But he still got the win. So I just think it's crazy to me that the Niners defense didn't like overtake this game, and yet they didn't. And I think that's kudos to the Browns offensive line and the run game, even without Nick Chubb. So,
Yeah. So, final thoughts. I wasn't, too big on the officiating in this game. I thought it was terrible all around. I don't think Brock Purdy is going to look like that again. So I don't think we should run him out of town. Not that anybody's going to run him out of town. I would be willing to bet that he's going to bounce back in this next week, which we'll talk about, pretty soon. Everyone else has got to play better. Hopefully McCaffrey's fine with his injury. I hope Debo's fine. If not, Brandon Ayuk needs to step it up and not have as many drops as he did today. The defense, hopefully we can get Dre Greenlaw back, because I think they're missing that, second linebacker. Shanahan, you better have your team, better prepared. If you're serious about winning the Super Bowl this year, we need to maintain the 1 seed. So, where he needs to improve specifically is clock management in game time situations, specifically at the end of the game, because that's where he's had his biggest meltdowns in his career. So, we can point to Atlanta, that Super Bowl. We can point to the Chiefs Super Bowl, and we can point to the Rams NFC Championship game, where maybe you decided to pass when you're supposed to run, and the pass wasn't working. The weather conditions, obviously it wasn't right. And you should maybe run the ball a little bit more. And like Mike said, establish the run. See, maybe Mike should be the head coach of the Niners.
I always joke this with Paulina. It's like anytime one of my favorite things, so like the Raiders or whatever else I'm into, like fuck up, which they just so happen to do a lot. I just joke like, why can't they just put me in charge? Like, I feel like I do just as good, if not a better job, as some of these motherfuckers in charge. But
anyways, I think we're ready to move on. 49ers versus Vikings. Mike, in our first episode, we did the roster breakdown, right? Are you watching that Tony Pollard play?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it too. That's why, like, I had that little pause in between transition. I was like, oh my God, he's going to go all the way. Yeah.
I have him in one of my leagues, so I was, yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so let's start over. 49ers
Niners,
versus
Vikings.
Niners, Vikings. Our very first episode, we did our schedule release reactions, right? And I penciled this game as an automatic W. It's Kirk Cousins on Monday night. Kirk Cousins is known for not showing up in primetime, specifically on Monday night. And I'm not even going to dive into the reason that I gave a couple months ago on that stream. But I really feel like the Niners are going to bounce back from this victory. And, I probably should have mentioned it in the Browns recap, but the Niners, in a way, needed that loss against the Browns in order to serve as a wake-up call. Because
I think every team needs a reality check.
After beating Dallas, the Niners got they were just so cocky and started a fight before the game. And, I seem to remember, this guy, Mike over here, it's like, agreeing with Mr. Laugh Now, Cry Later. What goes around comes around, right? And I feel like the Niners losing to the Browns, maybe a little bit of karma, because after we beat the Cowboys, it was like we stayed on that for longer than any other team would have, for any victory. But I got the Niners beating the Vikings. I don't think the Vikings are that good, and they don't even have Justin Jefferson, the like one player that we should have had to worry about.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a Niners team with, I wouldn't say a chip on their shoulder, but they're definitely going to be pissed off, to get a win, especially on prime time. Yeah, they're going to want to go out there and beat the shit out of them, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think too. Like, I feel like Bosa is going to get another sack this week. Randy Gregory played pretty well last week against the Browns. I hope to see if he can build off of that and, get back-to-back weeks with a sack, because it would be huge for the Niners to have another guy that can draw attention away from Nick Bosa, so that way Bosa can see more one-on-one pass rush. And this week he won't be going up against DeJuan Jones. I don't know. I mean, who do the Vikings have on their offensive line?
I have no idea. The only person I'm thinking of who might be retired by now is Riley Reef.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. Darisaw at left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's healthy right now or not, but I know he's good.
Yeah, I don't think Kirk can really escape the pocket like PJ Walker can, and it's really going to be a matter of if the 49ers secondary can hold, because I don't think the Vikings have that great of a running game, and even if they did, I would bid them good luck trying to run against this Niner defense.
Yeah, I don't
when
think,
they haven't already established it.
Yeah, the run game is going to get shut down. It's going to be dependent on Kirk Cousins. This is going to be a typical Kirk Cousins Monday night game for sure. It's going to be ugly. Oh,
yeah, I predict an ugly game. I think the Niners bounce back. I wouldn't call it a statement game. This might be a game where they just sort of dominate the ball, the time of possession. Jordan Mason, I think Jordan Mason's going to be the back that takes over. It could be Elijah Mitchell. The reason why I would give it to Mason over Mitchell is because Mitchell is coming off of injuries of his own, and he has struggled to stay healthy in his career. And you probably want Jordan Mason to be, getting fed a little bit more. You want him to have the experience and be ready in case he's needed later in the season. And I don't know if you can rely on Elijah Mitchell long term.
Yeah, I think Mitchell gets a couple carries, but I mean, in this Browns game, I think he got like 2 carries for -5. So, and
yeah.
Mason got like at least 5 carries, maybe 10, maybe 8, I don't know, but he got like 25 yards in the touchdown. So, and just this entire season, Mason's been pretty consistently good on the field. Nothing special, but he's been good. Scored a couple touchdowns.
I think Mason's an underrated running back, dude.
Yeah. I have one fantasy league where I don't really care for this rule set, but like as the games are going on, you can pick up players at any point. So you could drop a bench player that's sucking for a player that's mid-game. So like, for example, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I picked up Devon Achane, like when he got his second touchdown, instead of like the usual waiver period that we would have to wait for. I picked him up immediately. So I'm having issues at running back in that league right now. I'm actually the only running back I can play next week is Alexander Madison. So I had to drop Miles Sanders for Jordan Mason.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sanders is on a bye. So
yeah, I think that's a pretty good move. I kind of feel like Chuba might be taking over that backfield in Carolina.
That's possible. I know now we're getting on a tangent, but
yeah,
just because I have Sanders in another league or in our league, I honestly think Sanders is still the starter. I think that he just has an ongoing groin issue and a shoulder injury. So they're kind of limiting his snaps right now. But the amount that they paid him, I don't think they're going to go away from him. Maybe it becomes a 50-50, but I don't see him ever going below 50 unless it's because he's hurt. But if Chuba is like uber efficient, then okay, yeah, maybe. But that would be a pretty bad contract for them to hold on to for at least another season with Sanders.
Yeah. Back to Niners Vikings. Yeah. I don't see a scenario where the Vikings beat the Niners, even if the Niners are banged up. Monday night, Kirk, it's not going to happen. Give me the Niners.
Yeah, I think you guys can honestly rest McCaffrey, even if he thinks that he can play. I think you can rest him, and you guys should still beat the Vikings by like at least 13, but probably 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't really have much else to say about it, really, but besides, repeating the same thing. We gotta go out and see it, and we'll be back next week, to see whether we're right or wrong, and we'll at least be able to give our reaction fresh, straight after the game.
True.
So it might be a little later next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because after the game, I'm probably gonna watch it at Pia's house and then come back home.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll be able to keep it short. When's the Niners bye week?
Week 9.
Oh man, that would have been cool if it was week 8, because then we wouldn't have to talk about their next game. That's right, week 8 you guys play the Bengals. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So honestly, there might not even be much to recap next week, but we'll see. Maybe something interesting happens, and maybe Kirk Cousins just decides, you know what, this is my audition to prove that I'm better than Brock Purdy, and I'm going to be the Niner quarterback next year.
Yeah, I could have made that joke earlier. Like, well, it's clear now the Niners need to trade for Kirk Cousins now that Brock Purdy isn't so special anymore. But nah. I do think this is probably his last year with the Vikings. I think it's entirely possible that the Vikings go full rebuild next offseason. But we'll see.
Yeah. But that's it for that. Let's see. I got a couple comments here from Anthony. I'm just gonna read them off instead of putting them on the screen until I actually read them, because the first one starts off with, "Oh man, just did something so hard right now," and I'm like, "Oh God, I'm scared." No offense, Anthony. It's you. My mind's just in the wrong place. I'm a married man with 3 kids. I'm 32 years old. My oldest kid is 10. My youngest is 2. I recently created an Instagram to link up with Raider Nation when the Raiders played the Chargers in LA a couple weeks ago. Quote unquote, the girl that got away. The girl that I was in love with but never gave me a chance. We went to elementary through high school together, always saw me for the dog I was. Hit me up last Friday, and we've been talking over the weekend. She confessed all her love for me and wished she would have told me how she felt the way I felt for her. Just she never trusted me. I really don't know what to say, Anthony. I don't know if to say congratulations or if to say, oh man, that's a tough situation because she should have confessed it earlier. I will cautiously say congratulations. How about that? And I'm going to, because this is a football show, I'm going to go ahead and relate this to football. Oh, deleted my Instagram. Shut it down.
There you go.
Okay.
That's probably wise.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and relate this to football. We got our closure, but damn, that's tough, bro. Yeah.
That is tough.
You know what? The best way to deal with those tough situations in life is to kick back on a Monday night and tune into the Silver and Gold. It's really we read comments. We have a great little, community that we're building here. And, it was just crazy. 14 years later. Yeah. Sheesh. Definitely tune in next week to see, tell us if anything develops out of that. we're going to go ahead and end our show today, but we appreciate you for coming and, sharing that with us. And, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.